Hey everyone, it's Nicole and I'm back with another Vicky Booten design team project. Today I'm going to make some Valentine cards with just some really basic supplies. So I've gone ahead and just with some cheap cardstock, I've cut these kind of templates I'm going to use with some basic hearts. I cut a couple variations, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I also have trimmed down some foundations paper to 4¼ by 5½. And then I'm going to use this stencil here. I really love this pretty pattern, and I'm just going to use some art crayons and my stencil brush. So not a lot of different things, just really minimal supplies, but I'm going to make 3 really different cards using the same product. So I'm going to go ahead with this red art crayon and my stencil brush and just add a little bit of that around the heart there that I cut into that cardstock. So what I'm going to be left with is kind of a blocked out heart shape there on my card front on the foundations paper. And then I'm going to just add some splatters. I'm going to go ahead and add the heart back just so I can get the splatters on both pieces, kind of save some time doing it at the same time. And I'm going to set that aside to dry. That would have been a good opportunity to use on another project instead of cleaning it up, but that's okay. I thought about misting this, and I'll show you that I kind of missed it. And then I thought I had enough red on there. It looked like I had a lot of red left on the stencil, so I thought I could use that instead of getting rid of it. But it didn't actually have enough red that I thought, as you'll see right away. So I ended up just blotting it off. I spritzed it and just blotted it off, and you can see a very tiny amount of art crayon was actually left on there. I don't know if I've kind of dyed my stencil inadvertently, but anyway, I'm going to add some splatters to that as well, just to kind of add a little bit of more of the red color, and then grab my ones that I had drying and dab those off. So dab off all my excess, and you can see I kind of have a bit of a heart pattern, but it didn't quite turn out the way I'd wanted. So I'm going to start over, and this time what I decided to do is move my washi tape that I'm using to hold that little stencil down just a little bit closer to the edges of the heart. So I'm actually just watering down my red art crayon right now with a couple different round brushes and some water, just to make that nice kind of fluid image. And then I'm going to use my stencil like a stamp, one of my favorite techniques, and just stamp that into the art crayon and then press that down onto that kind of cardstock there. So you can see I have like a much more vibrant red kind of stenciled pattern. And I really only wanted the heart shape. I didn't want the outside, so I'm happy with that. Now I kind of liked what I was left with here, my kind of my blob. So I added some drops of red back to that. And then I just did the kissing. I'm going to call this the reverse kissing technique. I actually took the foundations paper and smooshed it into the paint. Normally you do the opposite. You would lift the transparency and smoosh that into the card, but I kind of really like the effect that that left there. I'm just going to smooth out a few of the edges here with my round brush, and then add a few more splatters because I still have quite a bit of art crayon paint left. I'm just going to do that here with that card with the heart that I just finished. And just to get that extra kind of splattered dimension, and I'm just going to tap off and the excess. So I made this really kind of nice, pretty watercolor background there by doing that. I'm going to call the reverse smush, the reverse kiss, sorry. I wanted to add a little bit of black just so that this wasn't super monochromatic. So I'm going to do just light sprinkles on all of my card pieces here with the watered down black art crayon. And this is just a nice way to add not a really harsh black, but just like a nice dark, dark, dark gray almost to it. So I'm going to add that to all 3 different pieces here that I'm going to use for the cards. Thought about going back into this card here where I had rubbed the leftover of that stencil on. I'm going to try to salvage my heart shape with the black, but I realize you really can't see a whole lot of the heart shape itself, so I'm just going to go ahead with my darker stencil stamped heart and add the black art crayon to it. So now I have a few different options for cards, and I have that heart that I've stenciled there with the stencil brush. So I'm going to kind of go from here and use these as my bases and see where I end up. And I do want to use some pieces of those die cut heart shapes that I had earlier too. So I'm going to kind of build all these cards at the same time, only because I really want to keep them simple. And so I'm just going to use kind of my leftover pieces to do that. I really like these 3 hearts stacked, so I'm going to start with that. And I'm actually going to bring in some red paper onto the sides of that white heart design. So I'm just going to trim down really small, thin, probably 8¼ inch strips, and add those along the back side, right on the side there of those 3 hearts, and that's just going to bring a little bit more of that red, so it's not quite so white. And I really wanted to add some of the stenciled red into the inside of those hearts, just so it's, again, not super stark. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to add those strips onto the side there. This is from Storyteller, this red pattern paper. And again, that's just going to bring a little bit more of that color. So I've trimmed those off, and I actually added a little bit of stitching on my sewing machine. And then I'm going to take this whole triple heart, I'm going to call it a little stencil I made on my Cameo, and I'm going to just pop that over top of that watercolor reverse kiss background. So that's going to add just like a nice, I'm going to see that watercolor effect, but have that kind of stenciled thing popped up there. So that's kind of the start for that card. I like how that one looks. And so now I'm going to move on to the one where I have the open heart, as well as the kind of lighter heart splattered background. And because they're on the white foundations paper, I'm trying to add a little bit more color. So I'm going to start by just foam squaring this heart I know I'm going to use. I thought about putting that on that same red pattern paper, but I decided I just wanted to add that over top of that a piece of white foundations paper. So I'm going to trim a scrap of that down, add that to my red cardstock, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that heart. So that heart that I used from the inside of the card that's up in the far left corner, I'm actually using the same pieces from one card all together to make 2. So I'm just going to corner around the edges and make sure that's all straight, and get a couple banners kind of punched out here using my banner punch for some sentiments that I'm going to add. And I'm really not doing a lot of extra work with these cards. I just want them to be simple, and that's why I'm sticking with the same kind of red paper for everything, so that, you know, as a set they kind of tie all together. So let's make a really quick banner, trying to decide which card I want to put them onto. And I'm going to grab a few kind of embellishments and chipboard from the Storyteller, and this set of stamps actually, because it has a really great sentiment that's perfect for Valentine's Day on it. So I've stamped that here with some red ink, or I will stamp it in about 10 seconds or so. And then you'll see I just trimmed that down into a little bit of a longer banner, and I'm going to put that in the middle of one of my hearts. So there's my stamp sentiment, and I'm just going to really quickly trim that piece down. I am going to use some of these chipboard letters. I love the kind of really kind of clean font on these, so it's a nice cream color that will go well with this card. So I'm going to add that to my little banner with some foam. And first I thought that would go inside the middle of one of my hearts there, the larger hearts, but I instead decided to kind of place it in the top corner here of one of the smaller hearts. So that'll be kind of like a nice little sentiment on that card. So I'm going to leave that one for now. And like I said, I am going to jump around between the cards just to kind of, as I kind of do something, to figure out which card it actually fits better onto. So I'm just trimming down that stamped image really quickly on my trimmer, and deciding which card that is going to go on. I'm going to add some staples to each edge just to add a little extra. You could add a rhinestone or a pearl. That will look equally as lovely. And I think this one is going to go in the middle of this card here. I was trying to decide if I want to do up top or below on the card. I couldn't really decide. I actually put it on this card, but I move it after. So you'll see that right away. And then I thought I'll use one of these puffy stickers. So I trimmed off the love, because there was 3 stacked together. I trimmed one off, and I am going to take that off now. And I'm going to put that with the U on the inside of this heart, in the stenciled heart. I did go in off camera and do some stitching on my sewing machine around that heart, just to kind of define it a little bit better from the stencil. So I am going to use these chipboard pieces again to pop up underneath the word love. So that's a good mix of your embellishments, is to really take pieces apart and cut them down if they don't kind of fit. Like that love, love, love would have been too large for this heart, so trimming it down like that will fit it nicely inside. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end up putting this right in the middle of my heart here, and I think that one is going to be really simple, so I'm not going to do a lot with that piece. Alright, so now I'm trying to decide if there's anything else I want to add. There are some really good hearts here in the puffy stickers, so I'm going to use a few of those to embellish all 3 cards, just little bits on each card. And it's good that, you know, if you use the same embellishments across all 3 cards, something like this, they'll at least look really well together. So if you're giving this as a little set, then you know at least things are all going nicely. And I'm going to fill all 3 of those little hearts on the smaller card there on the left. And the stickers here are also a good option because they have those nice little gold metallic. That's a nice little variation of that cream and the XO and the U. So I'm going to use that as well. I'm going to fill in the inside of my love there with a little gold heart and some foam to pop it up. And I'm trying to decide if I want to use some of the hearts in here. I really love how they have a couple different colors and textures. So I am going to use one here with some foam into the inside of this heart shape here just to overlap so it's not quite such a stark background. And then I'm trying to decide if there's a whole lot else needed. I don't want to overwhelm the cards and have too much on them, so I'm really trying to just keep everything kind of clean and simple, and I'm just trying to make sure that all my pieces are stuck down well. So you can see here in the close-ups the detailed images of the different stencil work. So this is the one here where we have the inside and the outside heart that we'll use on the other card. I did go in after the fact and add in some die cut leaves just to kind of fill in some of the areas. That's nice vibrant purple, actually goes really well with the red and the kind of pinks in the card. And I just love how simple it is to make cards using just a couple different supplies and 3 different cards really in not a lot of time. So I hope you're inspired to make your own Valentines, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.